Hi, welcome to this week's recording of Sex, Drams, and Rock and Roll. I'm just going to get us started here on the Spotify, so let me hit record. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Sex, Drams, and Rock and Roll. I've got us started on the YouTube already. They're watching me say hello to you. Great, so it is so great to be here. So this podcast, the way I've set it up is I go for 10, no more than 15 minutes every Friday. And the reason for that is I want to maximize your time. I could talk for an hour. I'm not going to lie. I easily could. But I just kind of want to make it a bit more of a short, sweet soundbite. Yeah, so this week I am featuring Canadian whiskey, Signal Hill, which I'm just going to put to the camera here for the YouTube people. Great. So this is one of my favorite Canadian whiskeys, and I'm going to get into that in a second. So it's funny, before recording, so I've been in musical theater my whole life. I'm used to being in front of audiences of hundreds of people, and it's totally fine. But for whatever reason, I got nervous this week, and I think it's because my podcast is international and people are actually listening, so I was so I'm kind of really excited. I even though it's only episode 4, it's actually going really well, and I'm probably going to do a double header because I did miss last week because things were crazy with the kids, but what I love about the whiskey community, and this really is ultimately why I will always blog about whiskey for the rest of my life. It's not the whiskey. It's really the people. It's the best part about being a whiskey blogger. I have actually made new friends, and it's great because they're like-minded individuals. I have a Bachelor of Science from the University of Victoria in biochemistry and microbiology, and that kind of gets it a little even more interesting as a blogger, because then sometimes I get to have some more in-depth, really engaging discussions with, say, some master distillers or some master blenders, which can be really exciting. It's for me, it's really the best part about being a blogger. I was in the Navy 18 years and I never used my degree, and now it's I use it all the time, and so it's really awesome. Yeah. And the other thing about this podcast that I love, I never pre-plan what I'm going to say, and although I end up rambling, I think it's okay. I love that when I hit record, it's okay, well, what's going to happen the next 10 to 15 minutes? I don't know. I have a couple things that I want to plug in there, but everything else is just sort of off the cuff and as she goes. Yeah. So anyway, getting back into talking about whiskey. So my blog is Women's Whiskey World, and on this podcast I am going to get into some international drams. However, I discuss international drams quite a bit already on my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. And I did want to get into TikTok, but I only have so much time and energy. I keep saying I'm going to get into TikTok, and one of these days, basically when I can figure out how to record and just hit post on all the multiple platforms, I'll get into TikTok. But in the meantime, yeah. But I do talk a lot about international drams on the other platforms. However, I wanted to make this podcast kind of special, more focused on Canadian drams. So we will, from time to time, talk about international bottles. That's definitely going to happen here. But definitely expect to talk mostly about Canadian whiskey, which is super exciting for me because it's really only recently in the last, I would say, 1.5 years that Canadian whiskey is starting to get popular on the global market. So when I started blogging, I think it was 2019. It's hard to believe. So 4 years ago. So it was only 4 years ago I started this blog. But even then, even 4 years ago, the landscape was really different. Like, there was a tremendous amount of discussion about the difficulties of women in the industry. Not that women were the difficulties, but the difficulties that they were experiencing within the industry. It was really a discussion that it actually hadn't even really been started yet when I started this blog. It's amazing. Within the first year and a half, so when I first started, there was nothing, and then a year and a half later, it was like this huge discussion, and my blog ended up being at the center of some of those big discussions in the industry because of the name of my blog, Women's Whiskey World. And what it did is it really forced me to tighten up my narrative and make it crystal clear what the mandate is. And at the end of the day, it is a blog for everybody. Everybody is welcome. Everybody who is kind and respectful is welcome. I think I've only blocked a small handful of people because at the end of the day, in whiskey, the majority of people are kind and respectful because whiskey is all about people. Let's bring each other together. It's so much fun, right? Yeah, so I love this industry, and on the days when I'm, sad or down, I do something related to whiskey, and inevitably I feel immediately better afterwards. Yeah, so all that to say, Canadian whiskey is really exciting right now. We are just in the last, so 4 years ago, we really didn't talk very much about Canadian whiskey. It really was there, but it was just kind of there. People were aware it existed, but it wasn't an exciting topic. And it's really only been in the last, I'd say, year and a half to 2 years that Canadian whiskey is starting to get popular. You're starting to hear about it more in Europe. Some Europeans, some other bloggers that I'm connected with, they've tried these drams. And I'm like, how did you get this? It was like a 21 some odd really big number aged Canadian club, and I'm like, I can't afford that. How did you get that? And they're from Europe, and I was a little jelly. I'm like, how did you get your hands on that? Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, what's exciting is that Canadian whiskey is starting to become a thing, a popular thing. So in Europe, and it won't be long now before we start to see the popularity beginning to expand in America. And I'm already noticing, because I'm on the other platforms, that I'm noticing, especially on Instagram, the American bloggers are starting to talk more about Canadian whiskey. So this is really exciting stuff. And here I am in Kingston, Ontario. I'm an island girl. I'm from out west, Victoria, British Columbia. And people from Ontario say, Chantal, Kingston's a small town. And there's 100,000 people in this city. And I look at them like they're crazy. I'm like, I have to leave half an hour early for an appointment. Where I'm from, I leave 5, maybe 7 minutes before an appointment if I want to be a couple minutes early. This is not a small town. So for me, this is an experience being in Kingston, and really in a way, well, I'm in the center of the country, and with my women's whiskey world, it's I sort of accidentally kind of ended up in the middle of a lot of discussion around whiskey within the industry and within Canada. And sometimes I feel pressure, and then I have to back it up, and I'm like, well, first of all, you were in the Navy 18 years. This is a whiskey blog. You can handle this. You've got this. And then 2, I'm like, no, whiskey is about people. It's about fun. It's about connecting. It's about making and creating memories with each other. And and this is an intentional segue. This is one of the things I did pre-plan. And for me, not for everybody who drinks whiskey, and that's okay. Because if you are enjoying yourself, that's the important thing. But for me, what's really important for me, anybody who learns how to work a still well, and learns how to manipulate grain and all that stuff, you can make decent whiskey. Anybody can do it if you're motivated enough. But for me, it's more than just drinking something that tastes good. it's also about the people. It's about the people behind the bottle who create the bottle. And it's the story about them, their culture, their history, and everything that goes into the bottle. So when you uncork a bottle of whiskey, you're not just uncorking a bottle of something delicious to drink. What you're uncorking is a story. And I love that about whiskey. There is always a story. Well, okay, not always, but like 95, okay, we'll say 90, maybe 90% of the time I have found that there is a story to every bottle. And I love that about whiskey. I love that this is a drink for the people. And some people, they say, oh, it's getting expensive. It's getting expensive. Yo, I could rattle off probably like at least 25, maybe if I tried hard enough more. Okay, let's be a little bit boisterous, a little bit arrogant, not too much. If you pushed me, I could probably do 100 bottles under $100. And I bet you I could do 50 bottles under $50 of really good whiskey, some of which is Scotch, by the way. So I do understand that some whiskey is getting really expensive, but also you must remember that there is good whiskey within reach. And this is an example. Signal Hill, dun dun dun. I freaking love this stuff. This is, it's got a beautiful story. So I'm actually just going to read that one sentence off of their website because it is just so pretty. So for those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can't see the logo like on the computer, but there are 3 triangles and they're intertwined. So I will read to you, I think 2 sentences from the Signal Hill website. The logo is inspired by an ancient Norse symbol that represents early Viking influences in Newfoundland, which, by the way, is my favorite province in this country. I did not want to leave when I went there. To us, the triangles of the Valknut perfectly represent the 3 most vital parts of Signal Hill whiskey, or what we like to call the Trinity: the grains, the water, and the barrels. And I didn't give myself enough time to get started on these 3, the Trinity. But the grains, the water, and the barrels are ultimately, I mean, it's just such an exciting aspect of whiskey. So I'm at the 12.5-minute mark. I'm going to try and wrap it up, give or take around 15. I might go a little bit over, but let's give it our best go. So I'm going to take out the topper here. There we go. Pour myself a little dram. Make sure everybody on the YouTube can watch. Hopefully you listening, you can hear it. They might have been able to hear it. I don't know, but you saw me pour it. So proof that there's whiskey in the Glencairn here. And it's a beautiful Glencairn. I'll put it against my shirt so you get the background. It's got this beautiful Celtic knot on it. It's a Burns Crystal. I saw it, I don't know, somewhere downtown. Oh yeah, I was at the British Isles store. I had to buy it. It's just gorgeous. For those of you in Europe who are listening, especially in the UK, we have in Canada the British Isles stores, because there's a ton of Scottish and, well, okay, Ireland is Ireland, but we have a ton of like British influence in this country and a ton of Celtic influence and Scottish. And this here, this beautiful Celtic knot, yeah, I got it at the British Isles store, and I just adore it, and I just love it. This is, of all my Glencairns, this is my favorite one. So thank you, Burns Crystal, and also the British Isles shop here in Kingston and all across the country. We love you. Yeah, and just getting into the dram itself. So I wish I would have given myself, you know what, I'm going to go over by maybe a couple of minutes because this is worth saying. So when it comes to whiskey, I do not like every whiskey I try. However, I do appreciate every whiskey I try. So there are some whiskeys that I have reviewed. I cannot recall off the cuff, so don't bother asking. I'd have to go through my reviews. But there are some whiskeys which I do not like. I absolutely do not like these whiskeys. But do I give them a bad review? No. Because when I'm looking at a whiskey from a review perspective, what I'm looking at is the structure of the whiskey. I'm looking at, okay, the nosing. So far I haven't had any whiskeys that are foul or have gone bad. I've heard other reviews where they've opened the bottle and they said, ew, this is disgusting. Well, the reason I avoid that is because every single time before I purchase a bottle of whiskey, I go on Google and I say reviews and I type in the name of the bottle if I haven't tried it before. So I have never experienced the displeasure of getting into a dram that I truly did not like. That I found repugnant, that I would not drink. I didn't like it, and then there's repugnant, ew, this is going down the sink. I have never once had a bottle that I put down the sink or gave away. And I believe that I have never experienced that because I always do research prior to purchasing a bottle. However, I have, and I will not tell you which ones because I don't want to bias you. And also because I'm on the distillery side on this. Because what I say people do take into account when they're purchasing whiskey. So just because I don't like a dram doesn't mean it's not good. Just because I don't like a dram doesn't mean it's not delicious. There's a difference between it should go down the sink and I don't prefer the nosing or I don't prefer the taste. And so as a whiskey blogger and as a reviewer, I'm very careful not to tell people which whiskeys I don't prefer because it does influence their decision-making process when it comes to purchasing a bottle. And to me, if a bottle of whiskey is good quality, but the flavor profile or the nosing is not my preference, that just means that it's the nosing and flavor profile that is someone else's preference. So I never tell you whether I do or don't like a bottle. Okay, that's not true. I will tell you if I like a bottle. But this is great, buy this, I freaking love it. But I will never tell you if I don't like a bottle, ever. Because I don't want you to not buy a bottle because I don't like it. Because maybe you're going to drink it and you're going to say, this is the most delicious whiskey I have ever tasted. And in my mind, I'm going to be thinking, I don't like that whiskey. That whiskey is gross to me. But it doesn't matter because you like it. So remember that. And any other whiskey bloggers and reviewers, perhaps consider my words when you're thinking about your next review. And I'll just one other pet peeve, just while I have your attention. Don't put down a distillery because it has a good reputation. It makes you look ignorant. Please don't do it. Please don't put down a distillery simply because it's popular. You do look ignorant. Don't do that. Okay, that's my pet peeve. It's out of the way. Now, I'm going to tell you what I love about Signal Hill. Now, I am going to tell you that I absolutely love this bottle of whiskey, but I'm going to explain why I love it, because if you have a palate like mine, you're going to want to buy this. What I love about Signal Hill is that it is comfort in a bottle. It's very, very comforting and easy to drink. Now, from a Canadian whiskey perspective, there are other companies that produce whiskey that I do drink, that I do like, but I do not drink it as often because the flavor profile is not my preferred preference. So and these are not criticisms, these are just objective observations. So if you do not like sweet whiskey, I would definitely recommend the Single Malt Glenbretton Rare 10. Now, I drink it and I freaking love it, but I love a good Speyside, right? And it is very similar. It's quite comparable. Now, J.P. Wiser's. J.P. Wiser's is, it's got like this really sort of, almost like a, you know how rye has like that, like I can't, how that, when you drink rye, it makes you want to go, that? J.P. Wiser's has that flavor on the palate in a lot of its drams, and those who like it, they like it a lot. It's a different experience, right? And Canadian Club, it's similar to J.P. Wiser's, but it's got even more of this sort of turpentine rye influence. And so if you like sweet whiskey, you will have to become accustomed to the Canadian Club experience. It's very good whiskey. It's excellent quality whiskey. I drink it. I do enjoy it. But for me, okay, so it depends on my mood. Okay, if I'm exhausted and I just want to sit down and relax, I'm going to reach for either the Signal Hill because it's sweet, or I'm going to reach for the Alberta Premium Rye because it's just it's just a freaking good rye. It's like got some heat and it's also kind of sweet, but it's not overpowering sweet. Whereas with the Signal Hill, it is a little bit more on the sweet side. So if you want an aperitif for, oh my God, am I seriously at 20 minutes? This is not 10 or 15 minutes. If you're still listening, I hope you're enjoying it. I'm sure if you're still listening, of course you're enjoying it. If you were hoping for me to be done in 10 minutes, sorry. Not sorry. Anyway, the thing with Signal Hill, what's great about it, so what I would recommend for Signal Hill is if you like the sweeter whiskeys and you're looking for something, you want a bottle that you can come home to at the end of the day, Signal Hill is going to be your bottle. This is a great, at the end of the day, just comforting treat experience. And what I like about it is that the price point is accessible to everyone. I love it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's one of the under 50 bottles. It is, right? Oh God, now I'm gonna look it up. Because if some of you go to the liquor store and say, she said it was under 50. LCBO, Signal Hill. If I could spell, that would probably help. Yeah, I'll just type this in. Oh, it's because it's not. There we go. Oh, no, it is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's coming up here at 42 and 43. Yeah. So this is one of my my under 50 go-tos. And yeah, this is, it is comfort. This is comfort in a bottle, and it very, very Newfoundland. Newfoundland is a very, a hearty culture. And I mean, I can't speak for the Newfoundlander people, but I mean, being from the West Coast and having moved to central Canada, I can only imagine that if I came in at the end of a very cold, bitter winter day, that I might want something that was easy and delicious. I don't want a difficult, complex, high-end scotch. I'm exhausted. It's like negative 45, 50 degrees outside. Celsius. I don't want something expensive and complicated. I want something inexpensive that when I'm exhausted, I can pour a dram or two and just drink it and enjoy it. And that's your Signal Hill. This bottle, you can hug this bottle. For those of you who are listening and not watching, you can't see me hugging it, but you can give your Signal Hill just a little hug. Because it loves you back. It loves you as much as you love it. Just like Newfoundland. Newfoundland loves you as much as you love Newfoundland. I love Newfoundland. I did not want to leave. I'm embarrassed to say this. I cried my last night. I was like, I don't want to go home. But I had to go home. I had responsibilities. Yeah. That's a true story that actually happened. Oh my God. Anyway. Yeah. So just really quickly getting into the nosing. It's like just these delicious, just rich caramels and the vanillas, the toffees. When you go home and your grandma is cooking for Christmas, it's like, it smells like that. It's so warm and it's so inviting. I just love the nosing on this whiskey. So, all right, let's get into this here on the palate. So the thing is, obviously right off the bat, it's beautiful. It does taste like Christmas. It is just, you got your rum puddings, your toffees, your, and the Macintosh toffees. Anyone? Macintosh toffees, the ones with the plaid on the front? Oh, those are the best. Yeah, it's got your rum soaked plum pudding and all that good stuff. It's so good. But the thing with Signal Hill that is, and this is this is for the more experienced tipplers. So for anybody who just kind of likes whiskey, you'll probably really enjoy Signal Hill. But for the experienced tipplers, those of us who like to dig in a little bit, if you dig in, you actually do get a little bit of the, just a hint of that rye sort of, it's a hint. It's almost like not there, but there's like this hint of like that turpentine rye, and it's almost not there. And it could, sometimes I wonder if I talk myself into it. It's like, is there the briny ocean sentiments in this dram? I think there is. I get into it, and the instant I put this whiskey on my palate, it's like I'm instantly transported to like the seaside edge in St. John's, Newfoundland, right? Or like I'm sitting beside like the lighthouse at Twillingate, right? Or is it it is Twillingate or Trinity. Oh, if I got that wrong, someone from Newfoundland's gonna correct me. correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's no, it is Trinity, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. We drove all over the island. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was everything I expected and more. It was amazing. But yeah, so whenever I dig into this dram, I'm instantly transported. And I'm from the coast, right? Like I'm a West Coast girl. So for me, like it's like a little taste of home. I love it. Yeah. And there's a lot of really nice, like sort of, like brown sugar when it's in the glass jar on the counter and it has like the lid, the metal thing, you click it and then right, it like opens like that. You can't see it, what I'm doing. But for the YouTubers, you open it and it opens like on the hinge. So you know how like the air gets in a little bit, and then you know how brown sugar almost gets a little bit sweeter when it gets air in there? That's what this is like. It's a little slice of heaven, and that's what Newfoundland is. Newfoundland is a little slice of heaven here in Canada. Brilliant. I love it. I love Newfoundland. I love Signal Hill Whisky. This was awesome. This was definitely not 10 to 15 minutes, but in all fairness, I am talking about one of my favorite whiskeys in the entire country, so it's not unexpected that I would go overboard. Yeah, so this is great. I'm now at half an hour. Yeah. Thanks very much for listening to those of you who listened all the way to the end. That's amazing. Please comment. Please let me know what you liked. Please let me know what you'd like to hear more about Canadian whiskey. Ask questions, become inquisitive, dig in. I love doing research, and I love getting back to you on your questions. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for listening to episode 4 of Sex, Drams, and Rock and Roll from me, Duchess Chantal Buczynski, the Duchess of Canada, but that's colloquial. That's not like an official term. You're like, what do you mean Duchess of Canada? What does that mean? I was, and I have not fully weighed this in yet, I was gifted. It was a gift. Someone gave this to me. The title of Duchess. Like, Her Royal Highness Duchess. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like amazing. It has not settled in yet. So, wow. And as far as I'm aware, I'm the only Duchess in Canada. And as far as I'm aware, Meghan Markle is the only Duchess in the United States of America. So we're kind of like Duchess twinsies over here in like the New World. It's kind of fun. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you for listening all the way to the end. Wow, congratulations. You deserve a dram. Go get a bottle of Signal Hill. Go pour yourself a dram. Drink some. You earned it. You deserve it. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. And please do get back to me. Let me know what you liked. And let me know what you want to know more about, because I'd love to tell you. Okay, thanks. Have a nice day. Signing off.